Hello and welcome to episode 123 of Magic Rays of Light, a podcast exploring the world of Apple TV and so much more. I'm your host, Devon Dundee. I'm joined by Sigmund Judge, all the way from California. Sigmund, how's your trip out there going?
It's going good. It's going good. A really interesting first few days in California for WWDC. I'm staying in Cupertino and I've been taking trips back and forth between Cupertino and San Jose, where a lot of the developer community events are happening on the side. Some great conversations, some really interesting ideas coming, and some concerns, I think, leading into the announcements that we got yesterday. Really interested to find out in the next day or so what other people's opinions are, especially from a tool side of things. But of course, I haven't had time just yet to kind of get my head around everything that was announced. On Mac Stories, we have a great overview of all of the different platforms and announcements, including Apple Intelligence. So I'm looking forward to kind of digging deep into those. Of course, my focus has been mainly on getting that tvOS 18 overview out on the website, whilst everything else is happening. From your perspective, how has WWDC been for you?
It's been really exciting. This is, of course, my first time covering WWDC with Mac Stories, and that's a totally different experience than just watching it and nerding out on social media, right? So I'm with you. I haven't had a chance to fully soak in everything, but I've been trying to sort of catch up and remind myself of everything that was in the event yesterday because, of course, it was just action-packed, but lots and lots to take in, lots to get excited about, but, of course, plenty to talk about over the summer as all of these platform betas continue to be developed and we move towards the fall when they'll be available to everyone, not just developers. But I wanted to ask you, Sigmund, in your coverage of tvOS 18 so far, as much as there has been, are you using the Apple TV Go and how's that working out for you?
Yeah. I've been using the Apple TV Go throughout my trip. I think I captured the TV app with that little 15-second teaser to the opening keynote within the TV app.
Mm-hmm.
I captured that in the car. So it's been really handy. Of course, there hasn't been too much back and forth where I've needed two Apple TVs. I did bring two with me, including, of course, the Apple TV Go. And I think the fun thing about it is it sparked ideas when I showed a few people who said, "Oh, when I mentioned I write for Mac Stories and focus mainly on Apple TV first, they're incredibly complimentary, which is a real pleasure to be on this team. But also they wanted to see the Apple TV Go, and so we've had some fun with that. But yeah, it has been super handy. Shall we get into a little bit of a recap from the entertainment side of the opening keynote and what was announced? Because, funnily enough, the intro for this WWDC keynote was entertainment enough.
It really was. I didn't really know what was happening when the keynote opened and we're on, I guess, an airplane. I couldn't really tell right at first, but the Apple team are in jumpsuits with the 6 colors across the sash, which was really cool. And they're getting ready to jump out of this plane, which I guess is the beginning of WWDC somehow. And Craig Federighi is leading them. We get a little moment of him not jumping out of the plane, but sort of falling backwards and, having his little cool guy meme moment, which I'm sure we'll see in GIFs over the coming months. But then as they're falling towards Apple Park, of course, they pull their parachutes, and on each parachute is the name of a platform that they're going to be announcing this week. And that was very cool. You see iOS and iPadOS, the expected ones, but I think we both had a favorite parachute that we saw open up. Is that right, Sigmund?
Absolutely, tvOS, right? And I was just happy to kind of see it given a mention because we didn't know going into this how tvOS and that story was going to be told, if at all. But we did start with Tim Cook giving some information on Apple TV Plus, letting us know that the streaming service has the highest rated originals 3 years in a row of any streaming service. And then we got a sizzle reel of originals that are currently airing or have just been, and then our first looks at some incredible, exciting upcoming originals and some returns.
Yeah, there was a ton packed into this sizzle reel. I love when they surprise us with these at Apple events because they just kind of come out of the blue. There's been times when I've predicted these were going to come, and that's the events where they don't. But I was really excited to see this. All the titles included in the sizzle reel are Dark Matter, Presumed Innocent, Lady in the Lake, Bad Monkey, Pachinko, Slow Horses, Severance, Shrinking, Silo, The Instigators, Fly Me to the Moon, and Wolves. Some first looks in there. It's our first video look at Bad Monkey. We've seen some photos, but we haven't actually seen any video from it. They didn't include the monkey in the clip, unfortunately, but I'm sure we'll see the monkey in a trailer before too long. First looks at Slow Horses, Severance Season 2, Shrinking Season 2, and Silo Season 2, all of which I'm just so excited for. And of course, seeing little clips from them just make it all the more real that they're coming before too long, Sigmund. Maybe in the fall, we'll see some of these Apple Originals rolling out. I really can't wait to see them. But these sizzle reels just get me so excited because we talk every week about, of course, all the Apple Originals coming out week to week, new episodes, premieres, finales. But seeing it all packed into one video like this, it's like, wow, just look at this lineup that they've put together. No wonder they have the highest rated originals 3 years in a row. I mean, just look at what they're putting out. To watch these not only as someone who covers them, but also just as a fan and someone who enjoys these shows and films, man, so exciting.
Absolutely. I love the fact that not only did we get first kind of looks at originals here, we also saw some first looks for originals throughout the conference. But, beyond Apple TV, the thing that we've been talking about for, well, since and way before its launch in January in the United States is Apple Vision Pro. And it's going to be rolling out internationally over the next month or so, starting with China mainland, Hong Kong, Japan, and Singapore on June the 28th, with pre-orders beginning June 13th. And then coming to Australasia, Canada, France, Germany, and the United Kingdom on July 12th, with pre-orders on June 28th. I'm really excited about this purely because I've had so much fun with Apple Vision Pro, especially from a media and entertainment consumption point of view, but from a spatial computing point of view. There's a lot of cool changes in visionOS too. Do you want to go over a few of them?
Yeah, we're getting a bunch of quality of life improvements, which I think are going to be really handy for using Apple Vision Pro day to day. One that I'm excited for is new gestures for activating the home view and control center. This is something that's been hard to get to with the current visionOS software, but now you'll be able to just kind of hold your hand out and up to bring up the home view, and then flip your hand over and it'll bring up a little clock and battery widget that you can then pinch to activate control center. So much easier than having to roll your eyes all the way back in your head and look up as high as you possibly can to activate control center. So I'm excited for that, and I think that's going to be really handy day to day.
Yeah, I think, especially when it comes to immersive video viewing, which we'll get into in a moment, not having to see that green menu prompt floating around when all you're trying to do is look around in this 180-degree view, that's a massive improvement just for that.
Most definitely. I understand why they did it that way from the beginning, but again, we're seeing them rethink even these really foundational things about visionOS quickly, which I think is important, seeing how early of a computing paradigm it really is. Another big feature that we've been asking for is the ability to rearrange apps on the home view, and that's coming with visionOS 2, including compatible iPhone and iPad apps. They'll no longer be locked to that little folder. And it's really cute the way that they show up on the home view now. It's like a little transparent bubble with the app icon square in the center, so you get a little bit of transparency around it, but it's really neat the way they've done that. I'm excited to be able to rearrange those. For those who use Mac Virtual Display, you're going to get larger and higher quality views. That's coming later this year. It's not coming with the first version of visionOS 2, but they did give us a demo of it. And basically, you'll be able to make it as wide as roughly two 4K monitors side by side. And seeing the
Mm,
demo of this, you're basically enveloped, right, in your Mac. And there's so much space there, so much more than you have now. I think this is a great improvement for people who want to use visionOS as a monitor for their Mac as they're working, and especially for developers who are making visionOS apps. In terms of peripherals, we've got keyboard pass-through when you're in an environment, so you can look down and see what you're typing, and mouse support, something a lot of people have been wanting. If you share your Apple Vision Pro with friends and family often, you'll be happy to know that guest mode has been improved. It will now save guests' information for 30 days, so they don't have to go through the setup process every single time they put it on, just once a month now, which I think is going to be a huge improvement and hopefully get more people trying out Apple Vision Pro. Travel mode is now compatible with trains in addition to planes. I know some people tried to use it on trains with visionOS 1 and it just wasn't an ideal experience. But based on how good it works on planes, I think it's going to be great for trains now as well. So those are kind of the quality of life improvements, kind of help you use Apple Vision Pro day to day, make it a little bit easier and more enjoyable. But we need to talk about spatial and immersive content because Apple's really, really pushing things here as well, making it easier to both create and consume immersive and spatial content. First of all, you'll be able to convert your 2D photos to spatial photos using machine learning. I'm really excited to try this out. There are so many pictures that I take on my iPhone that I wish that I could see in that spatial view on Apple Vision Pro. Based on the way Apple does layering with portrait mode on the iPhone and features like that, I think this could be really powerful and just add a whole new depth of dimension to your memories.
yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think from the production standpoint for immersive video, with the announcement of a new lens system for Canon cameras, and then further integrations with the partnership with Blackmagic and their actual camera hardware, not just the camera software, I think is really, really cool, especially considering just a month or so ago, we were talking about new cameras from Blackmagic that can record in incredibly high resolutions and bring the IMAX format basically to a consumer level priced device. So that is really, really exciting. But when it comes to spatial video that's kind of ready to be deployed to our eyeballs, what did Apple announce?
Well, they've been working on a bunch of new immersive content that they previewed at WWDC, including an extreme sports series in conjunction with Red Bull, a music experience from The Weeknd that they're saying is going to be the beginning of a series of new music experiences from different artists, and the first immersive scripted short film called Submerged from director Edward Berger. So we're going to see like a whole new category of film come to life. I can't even imagine what it would be like to be the first person directing one of these. The different things that you have to take into account, just the creativity that could go into that. I'm really excited for these. So yeah, I think we've got some really fun immersive content on the way from Apple. And with these tools coming later this year to creators, we're going to be getting some third-party immersive content as well.
That's very, very cool. Before we get into tvOS, just a little tidbit in the iOS and iPadOS announcements, and that is the modularity of different menu systems within different apps. And one of the examples there was being able to change exactly what you see in the top menu system of the TV app, which I think is very, very cool. Of course, you still have the sidebar, which has everything there. And I did note that TV channels have gone from square to circular this time round. But just a little tidbit that I know some people were hoping and waiting for, and that came to fruition. But let's talk about the big screen, Devon. tvOS 18. The announcements within the home and audio portion of the opening keynote. I'm super, super buoyed by a number of these enhancements and quality of life improvements. But I want to start with Insight. Insight is this real time intelligence led feature that you can access within the video player by swiping down where you would before see info for the content that was currently playing or your personal up next queue. in between there is insight. And what this does is it gives a real time reflection of the actors and their character names on screen. And for Apple Originals, you'll also see an integration with Apple Music, displaying the song or soundtrack or performance within a scene that you can click on and quickly add to your playlist on Apple Music for later listening. I think this is a great start to this type of feature for Apple, and I really like how they continue to integrate new features within the video player. I think the team behind that are underappreciated because we don't give much plaudits to the video player because we're playing video and that's what we're doing. But there's lots of functionality coming in. Of course, this concept was done by Amazon and Prime Video with their X-ray feature, which also brings in trivia and other elements as well. But this is a good start, isn't it?
I would definitely say this is a good start. And I think my favorite little piece about this that just really rounds it out and shows how well thought out it is that if you're using the remote view and control center on your iPhone, it'll actually show that information there. So you don't even have
Mm-hmm.
to obscure your screen while you're watching TV. You can actually do the lookup right on your iPhone. And I can't tell you how many times I'm watching something and I think, well, what's that actor's name or where have I seen them from? And now that information is just readily available right on my phone, and I can keep watching my show. So, Insight is really cool. I love the concept. It looks really well done, and I think this is going to be really, really useful.
I think the other side of tvOS 18 that I really like is the democratization of features that were maybe only available if you were using everything Apple, right? And enhanced dialogue, which was introduced on HomePod speakers, first the HomePod second generations, then the first, and then the HomePod minis. It's going to be coming to not only your TV speakers, but also HDMI connected speakers, AirPods, Bluetooth connected devices, receivers, pretty much everything. And that's because this process is now being done through machine learning as opposed to on the HomePods themselves. And I thought that was really, really incredible to see that Apple TV has this feature, and but Apple TV isn't necessarily always connected to HomePods. To be able to see this feature reach more people, I think is incredible. And as an accessibility tool as well, being able to boost the sound of voices and bring them to the front of the audio mix is incredible. And talking of boost, this feature is going to go up another level because there is a boost feature that just allows for the voices to further be pushed to the front of the audio mix. And that does that whilst also reducing certain frequencies from the surrounding noises within a scene. So I am absolutely buoyed by this. I know it was a tiny little thing that they mentioned that may have gone over some people's heads, but the re engineering, the democratization of this feature, um, I think is really a good look at where Apple are going to be going in the future with a lot of their features across platforms. Now, from the audio and subtitles category, we've got to talk about subtitles because they've been reworked or at least been made more convenient. So now subtitles will appear on screen when the mute button is pressed during playback of any video within Apple's video player. But then also, if you're jumping backwards, rather than having to say, what did she say or what did he say, that skip backwards will automatically bring on captions for that short amount of time, like we've had with the Siri feature since the launch of tvOS. So that was really, really cool. But the thing that I thought was ingenious was that Apple TV will look at the language that's being played back within a video, and if that language doesn't match the language set with your device, it will automatically bring those subtitles in. So that's going to be really interesting. I'm excited to see how this is going to work from a multilingual point of view. If you've got a mix of English and Spanish, or even like pachinko, pachinko will be really interesting to see how that carries over and how that works out. Yeah, that that blew my mind.
I'm really intrigued by this addition to captions as well. I leave my subtitles on auto all the time because the track is supposed to know when the language shifts and automatically put that up for you. But I found that that really depends on, who's doing the subtitles and what app you're in. And so this way, it's actually the system that's going to be taking care of that rather than anything on the subtitle end. And I think that's great and will hopefully make that more reliable and not where when I'm watching something that maybe doesn't have that integration done quite right, where I have to watch the entire show with subtitles, which I don't love to do all the time. So, yeah, I think this is great and a great extension of what they've been doing. And that backing up to show subtitles, I'm going to use that all the time. I can't tell you how often I back up 30 seconds, throw on subtitles real quick, figure out what they said, and then turn them back off. This is just going to really simplify that and hopefully frustrate my wife less when I can't understand what's happening on the TV.
I want to talk next about this very, very niche subject. And I'm buoyed by this because I feel like this was a request that a very, very niche amount of people put through, but it was fulfilled. And it's support for 21 by 9 projection. And what this is basically is it's a niche addition to the Apple TV software story this year that brings over native support for the 21 by 9 aspect ratio, commonly, of course, used with projectors in the home theater environment. And you may have heard of 21 by 9 kind of references 237 to 1 or CinemaScope, and that offers basically a wider canvas than the standard 16 by 9 widescreen format, meaning that certain films in that format aren't going to have the black bars. Right? It's a big kind of point of contention when you're setting up a home theatre. What aspect ratio do I go with? Am I more into TV? And therefore, I'll go for an aspect ratio that better suits that, or am I more about the theatrical movie experience? The interesting thing about this is, whilst there's no additional kind of details from Apple yet to confirm how this is going to work, my thoughts on it are that the support is likely enabled by the format sent by the display to the Apple TV via HDMI, very much like it is today with resolutions. And that could mean that whilst Apple are explicitly saying projectors, if you've got a widescreen monitor or you've got a massive modular LED video wall set up, I think you're going to feel the love here as well.
This is a very cool addition. I'm curious once this rolls out to people who have these sorts of setups, if we can see what the UI looks like, if it's going to stay 16:9 until you start the video, or if it's somehow going to adapt. If it adapts, Sigmund, I'm going to start calling that Apple TV Pro Max because I don't know if you're going to have more apps on the screen or if there's going to be some kind of spacing thing that they do there. I don't know, but if I were someone with one of these projectors and I wasn't able to use it to its full extent with Apple TV, I'd be basically jumping for joy at this point, I think, to be able to see films in their full aspect ratio. This is a great addition. And again, just Apple's commitment to that segment of buyers who are very into the nitty-gritty details of movies and getting that full theatrical experience. Very cool to see.
Now, when we're not watching films either on the big screen or maybe the slightly smaller screen in the living room, there's some cool additions to tvOS this year in the form of screensavers. We're kind of moving away from the aerials concept and really just bringing in whatever we want to the screensaver experience. When I saw some of these additions, I immediately thought, oh, this is a Devon feature for sure.
Oh yeah, this piqued my interest 100%. The first thing I noticed is that it looks like they're making it easier to change your screensaver. It's almost like changing your watch face on watchOS. You can kind of flip through them horizontally, or maybe a little bit like standby mode
Mm.
when you're changing between the different modes there, which I love because I could definitely see myself swapping between some of these. The arrows are sticking around and they'll be an option, but there are new options as well, including portrait screensavers, which will pull photos from your library, which are uniquely fit for that 16 by 9 format. It'll separate the layers out and it'll put the clock in unique ways, kind of like on the iPhone home screen where it can layer behind the content, which is just incredible. I can't wait to see which of my photos from my library it pulls out. I think that's going to be a real surprise and delight thing when that screensaver comes up and you see what it chose. That's just going to be so much fun. Other new options include screensavers from Apple Original TV and films, so some scenes from there. And of course, you got to have Snoopy and Woodstock if you're going to create this kind of feature. And so you can have them up on your screen doing silly stuff on your screensaver as well. This very much reminds me of the Snoopy watch face that came last year and
Mm-hmm.
just made everyone so happy. I love these Snoopy animations. I could definitely see myself spending some time with this one. These screensavers look amazing. The ability to switch between them looks like so much fun. And having a big clock up on your TV, I think that's going to be useful. It could be our first step towards my wish of some kind of status widget screensaver. And so that's what I'm hoping for.
I thought that's what this was going to lead to. And whilst it might not have been in the announcements of tvOS 18 during the opening keynote for WWDC, I can imagine us seeing some kind of upgrade over the course of this software cycle. Because, as we always say every year, this is just the start, really, of the Apple TV software story. To round out something I think is just fantastic, and that is an addition to FaceTime continuity camera, which basically brings in live captions of any conversation happening. This is something we saw introduced as an accessibility feature last year on iOS, but now it's come to tvOS, and I am so buoyed by this. I will be interested to see if there's any integration with SharePlay. That would be really handy, especially if you're proficient in Sign. I can see there being a really cool crossover example there. And from an activity point of view as well, there's some major changes to Apple Fitness Plus and how it's being presented on tvOS 18 and Apple's other platforms this year.
Yeah, it's completely redesigned, and I think this is an acknowledgement of just how much content is on Apple Fitness Plus now. I think the original design that they made for it was fitting back when it was a smaller library, not a ton to discover. But at this point, I mean, there are so many workouts that it's just, you could just scroll through the list and just look at all the different options and go for days. There's so much there. And so having easier access to, especially your library, I think is going to be amazing. I'm a big user of custom plans and stacks, which are going to be there in that library view. So having easier access to those is going to be great. But yeah, Apple Fitness Plus, of course, we're big fans of it. Seeing it get this much love, not only on tvOS, but also on Apple's other platforms that are featuring this redesign as well. It's just really great to see.
You know, one thing that I hope we'll get when it comes to Fitness Plus, and yes, I can't believe I'm putting a wish in, but I have to. It's something that triggered in my head was a wish or to just start a particular activity via Siri. And I think this could eventually come because one of the big kind of upgrades to Apple TV, which only got a mention in that slide at the end of the home and audio segment, was the ability for Siri to now process certain requests directly on device without the need for the cloud. And I think that's going to open up a lot of possibilities for the biggest screen in our homes. Now, that's everything on Apple TV this year, at least for now. We still have a whole beta cycle to go through before tvOS 18 reaches customers in the full. But what's happening from a home and audio perspective? Because there's some really interesting additions here that are not only going to be helpful for energy consumption, but also for tidying up a spot when really you want someone else or something else to do that work for you whilst you put on the next episode of Trying or Ted Lasso or hopefully soon Severance.
Right. Well, let's start with the Home app. It's getting a couple of updates, including integration with robot vacuum cleaners. I think that's what you were hinting at there. I'm excited for this. I hope that my robot vacuum integrates with the Home app soon so that I can add its schedule in the Home app and not have a separate place for setting that up. Maybe even set up some cool automations like, hey, when everyone leaves, then you can vacuum so that I can enjoy my show without having to hear you clean, right? That's the kind of thing that the Home app would open up, and I really hope to see that soon. As far as electricity usage, Apple's partnering with some utility companies starting in California, and I think we'll see it roll out to other companies over the year, where you can actually track your usage of electricity in the Home app and see where you're at throughout the month, how much power you're actually using, and make decisions based on that. Apple's, of course, been pushing their environmental efforts, and the Home app's actually been a place where a lot of those have come up, which is interesting. And so this is a great addition, and I hope this gets added to my utility company soon so that I can track my electricity usage in the Home app. Let's talk about AirPods for a second, Sigmund, because they're getting some interesting new features, especially the AirPods Pro. There's a new set of Siri interactions. You have to watch the video for this one because it's hilarious. It's depicting a guy in a crowded elevator, and it's giving you the sense of a scenario where you really can't speak out loud or pull your phone out. But what you can do now is when a Siri announcement comes up, you can respond to it just by nodding your head yes or shaking your head no. And I guess using the sensors inside the AirPods, they can actually tell which way you're moving and respond accordingly. Super cool. And again, the video is just hilarious. You have to check it out. Voice isolation, which has been available on iOS, iPadOS, and macOS for some time now, is actually coming to AirPods Pro themselves. That processing is going to be done by the H2 chip. And so now when you're out and about, you won't even have to toggle a setting on your phone. It'll just work automatically. It'll filter out background noise so the person on the other end of your call can hear you clearly. Personalized spatial audio is coming to games alongside an API for developers to create their own immersive gaming soundtracks. And so as you're playing, you can feel like you're being immersed in that sound. Game mode is also coming to iOS and iPadOS, bringing lower latency and higher voice quality for AirPods Pro. And so this is that feature that turns off a lot of background processes and really focuses on giving you the best game quality and also on that Bluetooth connection, making the most of it. I think this is really cool. It's been on the Mac for some time, and now it's coming to iOS and iPadOS. Now, you know I have to talk about my HomePods for a second, Sigmund. I love when HomePods get new features, and these next two are pretty cool. SharePlay is coming to Apple Music on the HomePod and HomePod Mini. You'll be able to activate this a couple of different ways. You can either bring your iPhone near the host iPhone and wirelessly set up the connection that way, or you can actually scan a QR code on their phone and get in on SharePlay that way. Start changing up the music, adding your additions, getting in on the party playlist. Very, very cool. And my favorite thing about this actually is that it works also for non-Apple Music subscribers. So you can just kind of piggyback on the host subscription, but everyone can take part in picking the music. It's very cool to see. Finally, spatial audio is coming to AirPlay. So when you're AirPlaying audio from your phone to your HomePod, you'll be able to hear it in spatial audio, which is also very cool.
Yeah, also coming to other AirPlay speakers, which I think is just a step in the right direction when it comes to audio and how other non-HomePod AirPlay speakers are treated. Very, very cool to see.
Well, I'd say that's quite a bit in terms of Apple TV and entertainment this year. You know, we weren't totally sure how much attention these platforms were going to get, especially with half of the keynote being dedicated to Apple Intelligence, which is not available on Apple TV as of yet. The processor wouldn't even work with what they're doing with Apple Intelligence right now. But I would say overall, this is a pretty great year for tvOS, Apple TV, and people who love it like us.
Yeah, and I think, some of our wishes were fulfilled. If you go back over the hours of us talking about what we hoped and wished for this platform, but there are some ideas that I hadn't even thought about. So I think it's really interesting to kind of see what their approach is over at Apple. And I'm also, just buoyed that they clearly listen to their users and, are continuously refining and working on features. A great software story for tvOS and the home and the entertainment landscape on Apple's platforms. But I think we need to get into our predictions for this year's WWDC because we were kind of far off in a number of ways, but then actually pretty on it on some. So, round one, three easy picks, 1 point each. But I didn't do great in this round, Evan.
No, bit of a rough patch for you here. I did a little bit better here. We'll get to the rest of the story later. My predictions were that apps and widgets on the home screen would be placed arbitrarily. That came true. I said that Siri will gain the ability to have context-aware conversations. That came true. I also mentioned that support for multiple simultaneous audio sources would come to iPadOS and visionOS. That was a no. iPadOS didn't get a ton of love this year. Your picks were that Apple TV software would include per-user home screen management, which we didn't see. Siri will be able to read messages from loved ones in their personal voice, and that the coming soon environments with visionOS would all become available with the first visionOS beta. Unfortunately, there's still one in there that's labeled as coming soon, and the new Bora Bora environment actually initially shows as coming soon, but then you can download it later, which is just kind of a glitch. But there is one that's still permanently coming soon. So that took away that point from you. So end of round one, 2-0, I'm up. Round two, we made two difficult picks each, were 3 points. We knew they were out there. We knew it was a stretch, but we didn't quite make it here. You said Apple would announce automations based on ultra-wideband or other precision technology. The closest we got was the ability to automatically unlock doors without having to push a button on your Apple Watch. Not quite fully there. You also said HomePod home theater mode expands with a successor to AirPlay 2. We did get some AirPlay updates, but not AirPlay 3, unfortunately. I said visionOS would be in a revamped notification system, app switcher, and the ability to group windows together. Notifications seem to be the same. App switching is the same. And grouping windows together, you do get the ability to have Windows come back up after a reboot. It's a little kind of hit or miss with the first beta, but I think that's something that will be nailed down throughout the beta process. That's cool, but it's not quite what I predicted. I also said that hardware-limited features would be available on devices with the M1 chip, A14 chip, and later. I was right about the M1, but we don't do partial points here. So I was wrong about the A14. Apple Intelligence actually requires the iPhone 15 Pro, so only last year's high-end phones will support Apple Intelligence. And then, of course, we're assuming that all future iPhones will be able to support it. But yeah, didn't nail it there. So at the end of round two, still 2-0, I'm on top. Round three, this is our bonus numbers round. These are worth 2 points each. We guessed how many new changes we thought would debut for tvOS 18. You said 8. I took the optimistic route and said 9, overshot ever so slightly. The answer was 7. So those 2 points go to you. Congratulations, tying it up. And then our final bonus number round, how many times will Apple mention AI or artificial intelligence during the opening keynote? The answer is surprisingly less than we thought because they talked about Apple Intelligence, but we're going to count that as well. That's their term for their artificial intelligence offering. I guess 35. You said 46. We were both way low. The answer was 60.
Yeah.
But you were closer, so those 2 points are also yours. So in the final round, you came back, Sigmund. We're going to call it a comeback here. Final score, 4-2. Congratulations for winning our prediction game for WWDC 2024.
Well, thank you very, very much. It was a tough one. It was a tough one because all throughout that keynote, initially, there was just no mention of AI or artificial intelligence. But then there was one more thing. And you've put a great overview over on Mac Stories amongst all of the overviews for all of the platforms. Everyone should go check it out because there was a lot to take in. this year. There really was. Of course, listeners, we haven't yet gone through all of the predictions to figure out who has won what, and we will make those announcements on next week's show.
Well, on top of all the platform announcement segment, we did have a few other little bits of WWDC news. A slew of games were announced to be coming to the Mac and other Apple platforms. Those include Valheim, Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown, Resident Evil 7 Biohazard, Dead Island 2, Sniper Elite 4, and Riven. Cool to see all those games coming to the Mac, and some of them also coming to iPhone and iPad. The Apple Design Awards winners were announced. Congratulations to Crayola Adventures from Red Games for winning an Inclusivity, Crouton from Devon Davies for winning an Interaction, and in the spatial computing category, DJ from Algorithm and Black Box from Shapes and Stories. Really great picks from the Apple team there. Congratulations to all the Apple Design Awards winners. Finally, we have a little bit of app news for Apple Vision Pro. Sandwich Vision has released their second app for Apple Vision Pro, this one called Theater. Of course, the follow-up to Television, a fitting follow-up, I would say. This app allows you to watch locally stored videos, spatial videos, and YouTube in an immersive theater environment. The app is also the home of the world's first live stream spatial audio event, the Talk Show Live hosted by John Gruber. As we're recording, this is happening tonight. I cannot wait to tune in and see what a live spatial video feels like. I did not think that we were going to see this so soon, Sigmund. This feels like we're stepping years into the future again. Apple Vision Pro felt like that, but this is just another step. Very ambitious, but I think it's fitting that the team at Sandwich are the ones taking this on, and I'm excited to see how it goes.
I'm going to be there in person at the California Theatre tonight, so I'll be taking photos of the camera rigs as well as I can, and if I can get away with it, I'm going to bring my Apple Vision Pro so that those photos, whilst they could be converted now with iOS 18 and visionOS 18, I want to have photos taken on an Apple Vision Pro of the rigs that are going to be used. So, yeah, very, very much looking forward to tonight. It's always one of the highlights for everyone in attendance at WWDC, and then it later gets published for everyone. But there is a little bit of a disconnect. So to see spatial video and live as well is an absolute mind-blowing combination.
Now, we're going to catch up on all the Apple original news next week. We had so much WWDC this week, we wanted to focus on that. But we did want to let everyone know what's coming out this week as far as Apple TV releases. Today sees the premiere of Presumed Innocent. Definitely check that one out. We'll talk about it on next week's episode.
Let me just say, fantastic. And if you have seen Presumed Innocent, the feature film, jump right in. You'll be fine.
Today also sees the finale of the Big Door Prize, a show I'm sad to see go, but keeping my fingers crossed we'll see a renewal announcement very soon, alongside new episodes of Dark Matter, Acapulco, and Trying. This Friday sees the premiere of Camp Snoopy, the latest Peanut series on Apple TV+. Life's always better when there's more Snoopy in it, Sigmund.
Oh, absolutely. And soon you'll be able to have him on your screensaver as well.
Camp Snoopy and a Snoopy screensaver, what a combination. Friday also sees the finale of The Big Cigar, alongside Friday Night Baseball, 2 games at 10 p.m. Eastern, Texas Rangers at Seattle Mariners, and Los Angeles Angels at San Francisco Giants. Saturday and Sunday, MLS Season Pass continues. As far as extras, if you have an Apple Vision Pro, there's a new WWDC-themed immersive environment in the Apple Developer app, very much fitting with this year's invitation and the colors and everything going on there. Just a nice little bonus for Apple Vision Pro users who download the Apple Developer app. Be sure to check that out. In terms of up next picks this week, there's only one that makes any sense, Sigmund. We have to point everyone to the WWDC 2024 opening keynote, available in the TV app. If you haven't watched it yet, so many exciting announcements. Definitely worth the time to check out. Of course, we'll link to it in the show notes.
Yeah, and I think to round this episode up, I would like to say thank you to everyone that has come up to me in person this week to either have a look at the Apple TV Go, share their lovely thoughts on Magic Rays of Light and what we're doing on this podcast, but also mostly ask Where's Devon? So next year we're gonna have to make sure that you're here along with me and do some kind of Apple TV and tvOS centric meetup, I think, to kind of mix in with all of the developers and the great ideas and the people that organize the kind of sideshow of developer interactions that happen at WWDC as well. If it's not for you and your organizational talents, this wouldn't be the experience that it is. So, a big shout out to everyone. And of course, everyone on our team at Mac Stories, the first WWDC as part of Mac Stories, has been really, really special. And here's to many, many more, Devon.
Most definitely. Do check out macstories.net for all of our WWDC coverage. There are a ton of overviews there and bonus episodes of App Stories talking about all of this week's announcements. So be sure to check out the coverage there. That's all from us for this week. We want to thank everyone so much for listening. We always welcome your feedback, so be sure to follow us on Apple Podcasts, where you can leave us a rating and review. You can contact us on social media via the links in the show notes. You can email the show or send us an iMessage to magic@macstories.net. We'll be back next week to talk about Presumed Innocent. So until then, stay safe, watch some Apple TV, play some Apple Arcade, and have a great week.